Let's talk about traveling with your dog in the winter because it's a little bit different than traveling the rest of the year. We are getting much worse weather than we do in the spring or in the summer or in the fall. We have to deal with ice and snow. And so there are some things to help you level up your travel with your dog to make sure everybody's safe, happy, and healthy as you're going about during the holidays or during your vacations or just surviving the snow if you live up in the north. So let's break this down. And remember, we have a full playlist on traveling with your dog to help them get over their fear of the car and have good behavior in the car, which I'll link down below for you. The first thing you need, especially when it comes to bad weather, snow, and ice, is to keep your dog restrained. You do need to have your dog in a harness and seat belted in or in a crate in your car because you never know what's going to happen. We have a much higher risk of having an accident in that cold weather with the snow, with the ice, with the black ice. And if something happens, you need your dog to be intact and stay in place. You do not want your dog flying out of a window. You don't want your dog pitching into the front seat of the car. And you don't want your dog maybe to experience like a bump in the car and have them try to get up in the front seat with you or get scared about that truck going by really fast. You want to make sure your dog is in the back seat or in a crate, seatbelted in, crated in so that they cannot get anywhere so that they are safe as you're going to be doing this. You also want to make sure you have your dog go bag. We talk about this in a lot of different videos. This is going to be a bag that you take with you every time you get into the car that has the essentials, your emergency kit, your extra water, a little bit of snacks, you can have some extra food, things that you're going to need along the road if anything were to happen. And you take this even if you're just like running to the store or if you're going on a full-on vacation. You want to have that emergency bag there with anything that you might need just in case anything happens. If your car breaks down, if you have an accident, if you do slide off of the road, have your go bag there so that you know what you need. And we've done videos on that, so those will be in the travel playlist that I've linked down below for you if you need help with that as well. And on that very related note, you also need to make sure if you have your dog in your vehicle with you, you have emergency dog food. If you get caught in a snowstorm, if you slide off of the road, if somebody hits you, if you just have to be stuck in traffic for a really long time and the car breaks down or you run out of gas or whatever it happens to be, you need to have that extra dog food, at least 2 or 3 meals with you. You probably don't need that many, but just in case. Just in case, let's say you're going on a holiday excursion and you are going back home and it's a many hour drive and you get stuck and then you have to stay in a hotel overnight. What are you going to do? You have to make sure you have that food, even if you're not intending on being out that long. If you are just driving into town and you get stuck in a snowbank or you get driven off the road or whatever happens, and it's late and your dog needs to eat, you need to have that food there ready to go. So take out proportioned food. So you already know what portions they are going to get. Put it in a Ziploc bag and keep it in your emergency bag or just somewhere in the car so that if something happens, you have it and you're good to go. You also want to make sure that you have blankets in your car because if you do get stuck or you get in an accident or whatever it happens to be, you need to keep your dog warm. Let's say your car battery just dies. Let's say that you are stuck in a snowbank and you have to conserve the gas in your car, or you have to make sure that, no fumes are coming into your car, so you have to turn it off. It's going to get real cold. And while your dog has fur, not all dog fur is great at keeping that heat, right? So we want to make sure we have blankets to wrap our dogs up in just in case we end up in a place where it's cold. But also, just as a side note, I've driven in cars with dogs before that were not turned off. Even when I'm traveling in the colder weather, if I'm sitting in the back seat with my dogs and someone else is driving, it can get really cold in the backseat up against the door because the cold air is coming in through those closed windows, through that door. And so I will sometimes have to wrap my little dog up, especially if she's the one next to the door so that she doesn't get too cold. So having those blankets there, just as a general thought, is very valuable and very wise for you to do. But if you get into an accident, if there is some kind of problem, having a blanket there is going to potentially make or break your success with dealing with those things. You also want to make sure that you have your route planned. So you need to know where you're going and you need to know what happens if something is going bad. Check the roads for the love of all things. If you are going out and it has stormed or it is storming or it's going to storm, know where you're going and know what is blocked. You do not want to be in a situation where a road is closed and you don't know what to do. Now, thankfully, we live in a world where we have GPSs on our phone and it'll tell us how to get around certain things. Back in the day, we didn't have that. But sometimes they're not going to be fully up to date. If a tree falls down in the middle of the road because the snow brought it down, what are you going to do? Your GPS might be a little problematic for that. So make sure you know where you're going and you've kind of checked on those roads before you go out so that you've got a plan and you have an idea of where hasn't been plowed yet or what has black ice. Get into those Facebook groups. People will tell you in the Facebook groups, but also get on your local news channel and just kind of find out where's safe and what is not safe for you to be doing while you are out driving. You also want to make sure you have that plan in case there is an emergency. So what are you going to do? I want you to, before you get to an area where you are going to have a lot of snow or black ice or whatever, you want to make sure you know how to cope with these situations. Just like we plan for a house coming on fire. If a house is burning down, you need to have a plan. How do you get out? Where do you go? Where do you meet up with everybody? What do you do? What's the action plan? Have that for car issues. If you are driving and you're going to break down or you run out of gas or your battery dies and it's cold weather, what is the plan? If you are going somewhere in potentially bad weather, what is the plan? If you get into an accident, you slide on the ice, you end up in a snowbank, somebody plows into you because they are not a safe driver. What is your plan? How are you going to do? When you have those action steps in your mind and you kind of run through them mentally a good number of times in advance, you're going to be able to go into autopilot. You're going to be able to handle whatever situation is thrown at you. You're going to be a lot better off than if you were just trying to figure it out as you go. You also want to make sure that you have my dog jumped off of my couch. You also want to make sure that you have supplies in case you get stuck on the road without heat. So you want to make sure that you have one of those car jumpers. They now have those contraptions that just allow you to attach this battery to your car and you can jump it yourself. You want to make sure you have water. You want to make sure you have a little bit of food. You want to make sure you have the dog go bag. You want to make sure you have the blankets, the coats. If you want to take a dog sweater or a jacket or something like that, have those supplies in your car. You can leave them in your car full time. You can take them in and out as you need to, whatever you need to do to function, but kind of have it if you know you're going somewhere where you're not going to have somebody able to run out and save you right away. And especially if you're going on a long distance, have those emergency things just in case you get stuck without heat somewhere for a prolonged period of time. It might take people a while to come tow you out. It might take people a while to find you if you're out in the country. Make sure you have supplies. Just be smart. Just be smart. And also make sure you are taking extra harnesses and leashes for your dogs. I like to keep extra leashes in my car at all times, just in case a leash breaks, which I didn't really think was a big thing until I went to this beach this last time and my leash just snapped because my dog went to run after a bird. But I carry leashes with me just in case anything happens. I also carry leashes with me just in case I spot a stray dog or a dog that has clearly escaped their house and needs to get back home. I can use that or I can give it to somebody. I keep extra leashes in the pockets of my car seat so I have them at all times. But I also want to make sure, especially during the cold months, I am keeping things like extra harnesses inside of my car, just in case. Let's say I am, out and about and I am going to get into a snowbank and I have to dig my way out. My dog is not necessarily going to stay in the car the entire time. So what happens if they get covered in snow and ice? I do not want them in that harness the entire time. I'm going to want to switch those things out. Or if something breaks or if something gets damaged, or again, if there's other dogs or other things going on, I want to make sure I have options. So carrying extra leashes, extra harnesses is very valuable to you as well. When it comes to a dangerous situation or a potentially dangerous situation, you have to think ahead. Have that plan just like you do for if a house burns down or if something bad happens to your car or whatever situation you could find yourself in. You could find yourself in it in the cold weather. Make sure you are prepared so that you are not overly cold, so that you have food and water, so that you have the supplies that you need, so that you have the first aid that you're going to need for both you and your dog should something happen, because we have a much higher likelihood of getting into some kind of accident, getting stuck, getting hurt in those cold weather months. And we want to make sure that you are at least somewhat prepared for when those things could potentially happen, even if we don't think they're going to happen. We know that even if there's just a tiny bit of snow, we could have some issues, especially if other people don't know how to drive. So being prepared is going to work to your benefit. The worst that can happen is you're prepared and you don't have to use it, which is actually the best resolution possible. But the worst case is that you need those things and you do not have them. So be prepared for the cold weather months. Make sure you check out the full playlist on how to get your dog to behave in the car, feel comfortable and safe in the car, how to travel with your dog, hotels your dog can stay in, all of those things in our travel playlist down below. Drop your questions and it's safe travels this holiday season and these winter months that are coming.